Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Wisteria here. The Maid's Sword and Banner is what we're on now. Joan's first official act was to dictate a letter to the English commanders at Orleans, summoning them to deliver up all strongholds in their possession and depart out of France. She must have been thinking it all out before and arranging it in her mind. It flowed from her lips so smoothly, framed itself into such vivacious and forcible language. Still, it might not have been so. She always had a quick mind and a capable tongue, and her faculties were constantly developing in these latter weeks. This letter, to be forwarded presently from Blois. Men, provisions, and money were offering in plenty now, and Joan appointed Blois as a recruiting station and a depot of supplies, and ordered up La Hire from the front to take charge. The great bastard, him of the ducal house and governor of Orleans, had been clamouring for weeks for Joan to be sent to him, and now came another messenger, Old d'Orleans, a veteran officer, a trusty man, fine and honest. The king kept him and gave him to Joan to be chief of a household, and commanded her to appoint the rest of her people herself, making their number and dignity accord with the greatness of her office, and at the same time he gave order that they should be properly equipped with arms, clothing, and horses. Meantime the king was having a complete suit of armour made for her at Tours. It was of the finest steel, heavily plated with silver, richly ornamented with engraved designs and polished like a mirror. Joan's voices told her that there was an ancient sword hidden somewhere behind the altar of St. Catherine's at Fierbois, and she sent de Metz to get it. The priest knew of no such sword, but a search was made, and sure enough, it was found in that place, buried a little way under the ground. It had no sheath, and was very rusty, but the priest polished it up and sent it to Tours, whither we were now to come. They also had a sheath of crimson velvet made for it, and the people of Tours equipped it with another made of cloth of gold. But Joan meant to carry this sword always in battle, so she laid the shadowy sheaths away and got one made of leather. It was generally believed this sword had belonged to Charlemagne, and it was only really a matter of opinion. I wanted to sharpen that old blade, but she said it was not necessary, as she should never kill anybody, and should carry it only as a symbol of authority. At Tours she designed her standard, and a Scotch painter named James Power made it. It was of the most delicate white Beauseant, with fringes of silk. For device it bore the image of God, the Father throned in the clouds and holding the world in his hands. 2 angels knelt at his feet, presenting lilies, the inscription Jesus Maria, on the reverse crown of France, supported by 2 angels. She also caused a smaller standard, or pennon, to be made, whereupon was represented by the angel offering a lily to the Holy Virgin. Everything was humming there at Tours. Every now and then one heard the bray and crash of military music. Every little while one heard the measured tramp of marching men, squads of recruits leaving for Blois. Songs and shoutings and huzzas filled the air night and day. The town was full of strangers. The streets and inns were thronged. The bustle of the preparation was everywhere, and everybody carried a glad and cheerful face. Around Joan's headquarters a crowd of people was always massed, hoping for a glimpse of the new general. When they got it, they went wild, but they seldom got it, for she was busy planning her campaign, receiving reports, giving orders, dispatching couriers, giving what odd moments she could spare to the companies of great folk waiting in the drawing rooms. As for us boys, we hardly saw her at all, as she was so occupied. We were in a mixed state of mind, sometimes hopeful, sometimes not, Mostly not. She'd not appointed her household yet. That was the trouble. We knew she was being overrun with applications for places in it, and that these applications were backed by great names and weighty influence, whereas we had nothing of the sort to recommend for us. She could fill her humblest places with titled folk whose relationships would be a bulwark for her and a valuable support at all times. In these circumstances, would policy allow her to consider us? We were not as cheerful as the rest of the town, but were inclined to be depressed and worried. Sometimes we discussed our slim chances and gave them as good an appearance as we could. But the very mention of the subject was anguish to the paladin, for whereas we had some little hope, he had none at all. As a rule, Norie's son was quite willing to let the dismal matter alone, but not when the paladin was present. Oh, no. Once we were talking the thing over when Noel said, "Cheer up, paladin. I had a dream last night, and you were the only one among us that got appointed. It wasn't a high one, but it was an appointment. Anyway, some kind of a lackey or body servant, something that kind." The paladin roused up and looked almost cheerful, for he was a believer in dreams, and in anything and everything of a superstitious sort. In fact, he said with a rising hopefulness, "I wish it might come true. Do you think it will come true?" "Certainly. I might almost say I know it will, for my dreams hardly ever fail. Noel, I could hug you if that dream came true. I could indeed. To be servant of the first general of France, and have all the world hear of it, and the news go back to the village and make those gawks stare that always said I wouldn't ever amount to anything. Wouldn't it be great? Do you think it will come true, Noel? Don't you believe it will?" "I do. That's my hand on it. Noel, if it comes true, I'll never forget you. Shake again. I should be dressed in noble livery, and the news would go to the village, and those animals would say, 'Him, lackey to the general in chief, with his eyes of whole world on him, admiring. Well, he has shot up into the sky now, hasn't he?'" He began to walk the floor and pile castles in the air so high that we could hardly keep up with him. Then all of a sudden all the joy went out of his face and misery took its place, and he said, "Oh dear, it is all a mistake. It will never come true. I forgot that foolish business at Tau. I have kept out of her sight as much as I could, all these weeks, hoping she would forget that and forgive it, but I know she never will. She can't, of course, and after all, I wasn't to blame. I did say she promised to marry me, but they put me up to it and persuaded me. I swear they did." The vast creature was almost crying. Then he pulled himself together and said, remorsefully, "It was the only lie I've ever told, and—" He drowned out with a chorus of groans and outraged exclamations, and before he could begin again, one of the Orleans liveried servants appeared and said we were required at the headquarters. We rose, and Noel said, "There, what did I tell you? I have a presentiment. The spirit of prophecy is upon me. She's going to appoint him, and we are to go there and do him homage. Come along." But the paladin was afraid to go, so we left him. When we presently stood in front of a crowd of glittering officers of the army, Joan greeted us with a winning smile, and she appointed all of us places in her household, for she wanted old friends by her. It was a beautiful surprise to have ourselves honoured like this, when she could have had people of birth and consequence instead, but we couldn't find our tongues to say so. She was become so great and so high above us now. One at a time we stepped forward, and each received his warrant from the hand of our chief, Deolon. All of us had honourable places. The two knights stood highest, then Joan's two brothers. I was first page and secretary. A young gentleman named Raymond was second page. Noel was her messenger. She had two heralds. Yep. Also a chaplain, and almoner, whose name was Jean Pasquale. She had previously appointed a maître d'hôtel and a number of domestics. Now she looked around and said, "But where is the paladin?" The Sieur Bertrand said, He thought he was not sent for, your Excellency. Now that is not well. Let him be called. The paladin entered humbly enough. He ventured no further than just within the door, and he stopped there, looking embarrassed and afraid. Then Joan spoke, presently, and very politely, and she was quite pleased, with a big smile. I watched you on the road. You began badly, but improved. Of old you were a fantastic talker, but there is a man in you, and I will bring it out. It was fine to see the paladin's face light up when she said that. Will you follow me where I lead? Into the fire, he said. And I said to myself, by the ring of that, I think she has turned this braggart into a hero. It is another one of her miracles. I make no doubt of it, not one. I believe you, said Joan. Here, take my banner. Sorry, guys, I'm getting emotional. You will ride with me in every field, and when France is saved, you will give it me back. He took the banner, which is now the most precious of the memorials that remain of Joan of Arc, and his voice was unsteady with emotion when he said, If I ever disgrace this trust, my comrades here will know how to do a friend's office upon my body, and this charge I lay upon them, as knowing they will not fail me, as I shall not fail you. Oh, wow. Gosh, yeah, let's carry on, shall we? Best carry on. Finally, Noel came in, out of his thinkings, and said, The first shall be last, and the last first. There's authority for this surprise. But at the same time, wasn't it lofty hoist for our big bull? It truly was. I am not over being stunned yet. It was the greatest place in her gift. Yes, it was. There are many generals, and she can create more, but there is only one standard-bearer. True, it is the most conspicuous place in the army, after her own, and the most coveted and honourable. Sons of two dukes tried to get it, as we know, and, of all people in the world, this majestic windmill carries it off. Well, isn't it a gigantic promotion, when you come to look of it? It is, isn't it? There's no doubt about it. It's a kind of copy of Joan's own, in miniature. I don't know how to account for it, do you? Yes, without any trouble at all. That is, I think I do. Noel was surprised at that, and glanced up quickly, as if to see if I was in earnest. He said, I thought you couldn't be in earnest, but I see you are. If you can make me understand this puzzle, do it. Tell me what the explanation is. I believe I can. You have noticed that our chief knight says a good many wise things, and has a thoughtful head on his shoulders. One day, riding along, we were talking about Joan's great talents, and he said, but greatest of all her gifts, she has the seeing eye. I said like an unthinking fool, the seeing eye? I shouldn't count on that for much. I suppose we all have it. No, he said. Actually, very few have it. Then he explained, and made his meaning clear. He said, the common eye sees only the outside of things, and judges by that. But the seeing eye pierces through, reads into the heart and the soul, finding their capacities, which the outside didn't indicate nor promise, and which the other kind of eye couldn't detect. He said, the mightiest military genius must fail and come to nothing, if it have not the seeing eye. That is to say, if it cannot read men and select its subordinates with an infallible judgment. It sees as by intuition that this man is good for strategy, one for the dash and daredevil assault, the other for patient bulldog persistence, and it appoints each to the right place and wins, while the commander without the seeing eye would give to each the other's place and lose. It was right about Joan, and I saw it. When she was a child at the tramp that night when he came out, her father and all of us took him for a rascal, but she was an honest person, and she saw through his rags and saw he was honest. When I dined with the governor of Vancouver. So long ago, I saw nothing in our 2 nights, though I sat with them and talked with them 2 hours. Joan was there 5 minutes. Neither spoke to them, nor heard them speak, yet she marked them for men of worth and fidelity, and they have confirmed her judgment, whom she sent for to take charge of this thundering rabble of new recruits out Boer, made up of old disbanded Armagnac raiders, unspeakable hellions every one. Why, she has sent for Satan himself, that is to say, Lahire, that military hurricane, that godless swashbuckler, that horrid conflagration of blasphemy, that vivivius of profanity, forever an eruption. Does he know how to deal with the mob of roaring devils better than any man that lives? For he is the head devil of this world, his own self. He is the match of the whole of them combined, probably the father of most of them. He places him in temporary command until she can get to Blur herself, and then, why, then she will certainly take him in hand personally, or I don't know her as well as I ought to. After all these years of intimacy, that will be a sight to see, that fair spirit in her white armour, delivering her will to that muck-heap, that rag-pile, that abandoned refuse of perdition. "La, here," cried Noel, "our hero of all these years. I do want to see that man." "I too. His name stirs me just as it did when I was a little boy. I want to hear him swear." "Of course. I'd rather hear him swear than another man pray. He is the frankest man there is, and the naivest. Once, when he was rebuked for pillaging on his raids, he said it was nothing, said he. If God, the Father, were a soldier, he would rob. I judge he is the right man to take temporary charge, there at Blue. Joan has cast a seeing eye upon him, you see, which brings me back to where I started. I have an honest affection for the paladin, and not merely because he is a good fellow, but because he is my child. I made him what he is, the windiest blusterer, the most Catholic liar in the kingdom. I'm glad of his luck, but I hadn't the seeing eye. I shouldn't have chosen him for the most dangerous post in the army. I should have placed him in the rear, to kill the wounded, violate the dead. Well, we shall see. Joan probably knows what is in him better than we could ever know. And I'll give you another idea. When a person in Joan of Arc's position tells a man he is brave, he believes it. Believing it is enough, in fact. To believe yourself brave is to be brave. It is the one only essential thing, might I add. "Now you've hit it," cried Noel. "She's got the creating mouth as well as the seeing eye. Ah, yes, that is the thing. France was cowed, and a coward Joan of Arc has spoken, and France is marching with her head up. I summon now to write a letter from Joan's dictation. During the next day and night our several uniforms were made by the tailors, and our new armour provided. We were beautiful to look upon now, whether clothed for peace or war. Clothed for peace, in costly stuffs and rich colours. The paladin was a tower dyed with the glories of sunset, plumed and sashed and ironclad for war. He was a still statelier thing to look at. Orders had been issued for the march towards Bleuze. It was a clear, sharp, beautiful morning, as our showy great company trotted out in the column, riding 2 and 2, Joan and the Duke of Alençon in the lead, d'Aulon and the big standard-bearer next, and so on. We made our handsome spectacle, as you might well imagine. We ploughed through the cheering crowds, with Joan bowing her plumed head to left and right, the sun glinting from her silver mail. The spectators realised that the curtain was rolling up before their eyes upon the first act of the prodigious drama, and their rising hopes were expressed in enthusiasm that increased with each moment, until at last one seemed to even physically feel the concussion of the huzzas as well as hear them. Far down the street we heard the softened strains of wind-blowing music. We saw a clad of lancers moving the sun glowing with subdued light upon the massed armour, but striking bright upon the soaring lance-heads, a vaguely luminous nebula, so to speak, with a constellation twinkling above it. And that was our guard of honour. It joined us. The procession was complete. The first war march of Joan of Arc was begun. The curtain was up. Oh, wow. Wow. She's 17. I have no words. I'm sorry. I know usually you want to hear my thoughts, but she's a 17-year-old girl running an army. I have no words. Again. And I'm very emotional. I don't know why. Very emotional. Sorry about my dog snoring in the background. That's Dougal. Thank you for listening. Many blessings. I'm sorry that I have no words. But, yeah, many blessings.